So are we going to get Hacker Battle 2 right off the bat? Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 6 of Lazarus. And last time on, we had, a hacker battle. We had our hacker whose name I can never remember from our team, from Lazarus. And she ended up having to take on this other hacker, um, whose name I also can't remember. It was like Popcorn Wizard. Had to take on Popcorn Wizard through this lead into things. Because first we infiltrated the pharmaceutical company to see if they knew anything. The CEO knew nothing, they had no information, but they were trying to figure things out too, and it was like causing a lot of stress and depression to the CEO. But through working with Lazarus and planning this fake conference about finding a cure, the CEO was able to kind of come back from that and find a new hope for catching Dr. Skinner. And during this fake conference, they were trying to see if they could lure in Skinner, but it didn't quite work. Instead, there was a hacker who we are not quite sure if Popcorn Wizard is working directly with Skinner or not. But either way, has stopped things from really happening here. And it's going to be interesting to see where things go now. Because it's like you can't pull this trick again, obviously. And with this episode, we're going to be about halfway through the season. So we have to see how they end up finding Skinner. And I think we're going to start to see that soon. I think we're going to start to because each of these episodes have, while there's been an ongoing story, they've kind of also been their own little things. Each episode focuses on Lazarus searching for another lead, following that lead, it not leading to as much as they hoped. But usually it gives them some kind of hint, some kind of clue. But we haven't had an ongoing narrative between episodes outside of the main narrative. So the fact that the hacker Popcorn Wizard got away last time, was not caught, was not even identified by Lazarus, that leads to the possibility of this continuing. Maybe this episode, maybe not. It could come down the line. But that could be a major lead into finding Skinner. And so I think in the second half of the season, we're definitely going to tackle that a little more. We're actually going to excuse me, we're actually going to make progress more so than we have been. Because it's about that point in the series where we do need to start going to that route. We do need to start making progress. Otherwise, considering this is going to be a single season series, it's going to feel like it's dragging until the last moment. And you don't want that for a series like this. For a limited run show, you want to make sure it gets to the point as soon as it can, really. But you don't want to do it too early, because then it's you have to fill in a lot of other stuff. So reaching about the halfway point is when you really have to start changing things, when you really have to start again, making progress. And so I'm hoping that's what we start to get, because this episode here is basically going to be the last episode before the second half, because there's 12, 13 episodes. So this is going to really be a pivotal one to see how this goes down. And I mean, as always, I'm just excited to see more of the crew doing awesome things, because all of these characters are pretty great. I would say, if I had to say the weakest links of the crew right now, not counting the lady in charge, would have to be the two I very much cannot remember the names of, which is the hacker girl. And she just hasn't had enough time to shine. Last episode was great for her, but she needs more time to shine. Like, the other characters have just had a lot more than her. And then the drone boy, who is a great support, but he hasn't really had like the focus as a great character yet. Like, we've had great focus on obviously Axel, but Chris, even Doug has had a little more focus. But those other two just really haven't as much yet. And then obviously our leader hasn't really done too much, but I'm not really expecting her to. Like, she definitely comes across as the character who's like, yeah, she's in charge, she's running the operation, she gets involved, she helps the crew out, like we saw her working with the hacker girl. But she's not going to be like a super active, constant um member of the squad. She's leading the charge, but she's not going to be actively taking part in most of the stuff. And that's fine, because characters like that deserve to exist too. We need characters who are just leaders and running the operation just as much as we need those who are actively taking part in it. The one thing that hasn't really been followed up on yet, though, is from like a couple episodes back when they were visiting Skinner's grandmother in in where was it? In like the Middle East area. I can't remember like what the country was at the moment. I don't think it was Turkey, but I might be wrong. But when they were visiting her and everything, there was the camera in her house that was found, and that was not followed up on yet, because it implied and almost pretty much confirmed that Skinner was watching. And it makes sense, like, oh, he's watching over his grandmother, making sure she's safe. Sure, I get that. But it kind of implies that he knew they were after him, which I figured he would know anyways, because he set forth that rule that's like, oh, if you catch me, you get the antidote and everything. That just hasn't been followed up on at all yet. Excuse me. And I'm really curious about that, because it's like, I mean, I understand, like, what are you supposed to do? But, like, couldn't they, like, trace the signal to some degree? I don't know. I'm not, like, the best with technology. A lot of people, especially in my family, weirdly think I am. I'm not. Um, but still, I feel like you should be able to, at least be able to do something with that, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how easy it would be to do something like that. But either way, um, I'm just very curious to see how this continues to go down, and especially going into the second half. Sorry for all the yawning. Don't know why that's happening. I got plenty of sleep. um, let's just get into this. Maybe it's my body telling me, like, stop talking, get into the episode. So let's check this out and see what we have in store. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I wonder if we'll see Hannah again, or even Elena's mother. Um, it's really hard to say. And now that Billy's been like killed and the cult is like just done, obviously, like, what are just all of these survivors going to do? Like, because they can't go back. There's just no way for them to do so at this point. Naga is, finished. The cult is officially taken down. It's like they're gonna have to live in the real world, and I really hate to say this, but this is, let's be honest, the truth of the matter. Because of how some of them are indoctrinated, there's at least a good portion of them who are going to commit suicide. It's it's a horrific truth because they can't go back. There's no returning to that. Because even if they tried to build like their own commune, they don't have Naga. They just don't have that anymore. And there's no way to make that, like, to bring back what they lost here. So again, even if, so, like, one of the surviving members got the rest of them together and tried to start like the commune over, it wouldn't exist in the same way. It would be, it would have to be a completely different new thing. And yeah, some people would definitely go in for that, but others wouldn't because they were so specifically indoctrinated into that belief system. And again, some of these people would just straight up refuse to live in the world of the modern day. There are going to be some of them, and considering there was already going to be the ritual suicide anyways, there are going to be some of them who will kill themselves. It's a guarantee. I can't say how many, but it's a guarantee that some of them will. Like, honestly, I could even see Elena's mother doing so. Because she was so, like, obviously and egregiously into it, to the point where she was smiling in like pure joy at seeing her daughter about to be burned like a witch at the stake. And her reaction afterwards too, like, just pure disappointment and like not even hatred, just a feeling of like apathy, I would say. Pure apathy towards Elena at the end there. From her eyes, it's pretty much equivalent of Elena not existing in her mind anymore. And that's kind of worse than if she did just hate her. She's gonna refuse to acknowledge her from this point on. And you know how much that hurts Elena, because you saw at the end, like, she was seeking comfort with Chris. Chris, through Lazarus, is kind of becoming like a big sister, even mother figure to her. Because you have to realize, Chris, Axel, Doug, they're adults. But Elena and Leland are just kids. They're like 15, 16 years old. Like, this is going to affect them extremely hard. And so Chris seeking out that comfort from, or Elena seeking out that comfort from Chris makes sense. After that look her mother gave her, after everything, after having to live through even a short time in this commune again that, has already scarred her, she needed someone in that moment, and Chris was entirely open for it. She asked Chris, "Can I sleep in here tonight?" And Chris was like, "Yeah, of course." No hesitation. And while we don't like fully know Chris's story or anything, it's like you could tell like she was super open and super like understanding of Elena's pain here. And I like that because it showed like even after Elena like went into bed with her, it showed that Chris was still awake and still like thinking about it and still like concerned for her. That's one thing above everything else is that everyone in Lazarus is connecting with each other. They're growing these bonds and getting closer than ever. And I like seeing that. Like in some cases they're becoming friends and in some cases there's even more of a familial connection. It creates this depth of character that I feel like a lot of series wouldn't feel the need to go into. But Shinichiro Watanabe does shit like this. Like Carol and Tuesday did this a lot. It was one of the biggest themes of Carol and Tuesday, especially in regards to Tuesday and her family issues and having to leave that behind and find new family and it all really eventually worked out for Tuesday in that regard, but there was a good amount of time where she and her family were at really bad terms with each other. And so, I mean, at the very beginning of the series, she's literally running away from home. So, yeah. The series, like, really, both Carol and Tuesday and this really, like, are exploring these kind of, like, emotional connections. Not ones forged after, like, a long period of time together, but out of almost necessity. And that's something that like is a key element of the found family trope, the chosen family. One of the biggest elements of that is desperation, is a need to find some level of familial connection amidst pain, amidst sorrow. And it's not always the case, and it's not always the same in how it's handled. But like One Piece is obviously a great example of found family with the Straw Hats. And yeah, all of them go through their own levels of like pain and sorrow and trauma. And all of them come together in very important ways and find love and peace with each other in ways that they never thought they could find or were worthy of finding. And again, you see this in a lot of other things too. Symphogear is an example you could use for this. There is definitely those kind of connections forged here, especially like through season 3. You see a lot of that because the familial connection is actually important to season 3's plot. um, there's a lot of series out there that really do this right, and I honestly think this is one of them. Like going into this, I didn't really expect this to be like this kind of series. I didn't expect Lazarus to like focus on found family stuff, even with like getting this group of like, you know, light criminals together and everything. It's like it just never really crossed my mind, but this episode like did it so well and like really integrating that in. Also, um I moving kind of away from the cult stuff, although that was like the majority of the episode. I do also like seeing a little bit of the other side of things, like seeing Chris, Doug, and Axel kind of like studying and working through things, finding information out. Uh, we get to see their perspective as well, which does maybe take a little bit away from the cult plot line, but not enough to really make it a detriment. I like seeing Axel like just running around like he's a dog with zoomies. Which, it's Axel. He absolutely is just a dog with zoomies. Um, but like Chris, like melancholy looking over the railing, and Doug being very studious. It definitely fits like what we've seen from their characters. And like Axel is also shown to be very smart though, so like him like putting forth the idea to the others that it's like, oh, if this AI is based off of Skinner, then couldn't he want to destroy the world too? And the others all like give each other a look, and they're like, oh shit, he's right. And although it's not like the world, we see that kind of come into play with the AI, with Naga trying to destroy the commune and toying with the cultists' lives and everything. And Naga even said, it's like, this is what a god does, right? Toys with their followers. So I'm a good god. And Axel seemed almost like offended by that idea, interestingly enough. Like he's like hell you are. You're just a stupid robot with like bad tech or something. Whatever the fuck he said. You know. Um but yeah, this episode did a lot for Elena's character, like a lot. I might even remember her name now. Leland, it didn't do as much by any means. He definitely had some growth here, but I feel like we're going to get a Leland specific episode still. Um, and Hannah's an interesting one because the idea of her being like brought out of the commune and saved from all of that was brought up, and they even said it's like Leland told her he has the smoke bomb in his bag. If you want to get out, if you're like ready to do this, use it. And she did. But at the end, she also shows like not necessarily coldness towards Elena, but like she's clearly still struggling with her choice. She's out, which is clearly what she wanted. She was upset at Elena for leaving without her in the first place. But it's like, at what cost? What is this done? Is this like right? She's still struggling with that because she's been like brainwashed. Again, she's probably the same age as Elena, or around it at least. And so, like, she's fairly young, and she's been raised her entire life, I'm sure, in this cult, right? So it's all she knows, but she's had these thoughts, and she's wanted out. And when Elena escaped, she felt left behind. She felt abandoned. She felt like her friend abandoned her. And that hurt her. It's it's a very complicated issue. Cults are not something to take lightly. I've seen various videos about like the different cults out there and how they operate, and like from people who have been in them and had to escape. Like from things like even Jehovah's Witnesses, who it's like if you leave, you're just completely disassociated from everyone in the Jehovah's Witnesses, and at that point, like you're not even allowed to have contact with your family who are still in it anymore. They're not allowed to have contact with you. It's like cold turkey, cut off completely. And it's like, it's really messed up in so many ways. It's their way of controlling people, of keeping them from, having thoughts outside of what they tell them. And it really does suck. And it's interesting to find out that Billy, the cult leader, was like one of the MIT guys who worked on this, on Naga. And it's weird because it's like they were theorizing that Billy was like doing this just to feed the AI and everything, but no, you could tell in the end he was fully like into it as well. I think it's more likely that he saw, while working on Naga, he saw, like, he started to see it as a god. He started to see it as something greater than humanity and something to follow, and he kind of just went crazy. And when he started this commune and everything, it's just, that's just all it was. He had gone crazy, and he started this as a way to follow something that he saw as bigger, as better, and it just snowballed from there. Because if he showed like any regrets or like any kind of like secret agenda at the end when like the ritual suicide thing was going down, like then you could have maybe said like, oh, he's like tricking them and he's gonna have a way out or something, and he's doing this just to feed the AI. But it's very clear that's not what's going on. It's very clear he's just as invested in this as his followers. So it's like he was a very smart man who went crazy and dragged others into it too. And that's what's kind of tragic about this all. Like I said early on, it's like I don't blame the followers because they were manipulated into thinking this way. I blame the ones who are in charge, who are doing the manipulating, the ones who have the power. They're the issue. They're the ones who are beyond the point of sympathy at this point. And in this case, it would be Billy. I don't blame the mother. I don't blame Hannah. I don't blame any of them. It's just, I feel bad for people who go through this stuff. Because, like I said, it's very real and people go through this all the time. And the worst part about it is, like, with every cult, there's always good aspects. Because there has to be. There has to be things that would hook people in, that would make them think, like, oh, yeah, this actually makes sense. And you see that in here. The self sufficiency, that there's nothing wrong with that. The lack of, like, connection to the outside world isn't even that bad. Um, a lot of the way, like, they live and communicate with each other and are super close. The issues come in with how it's controlled. Like the fact that Elena has never known who her father was because that's never been a thing. The idea of a standard family unit in this cult just doesn't exist. And it kind of makes you think about other things that weren't stated in this. What does that mean for like the, let's be honest, sexual side of things? Because there are absolutely cults out there that get really fucking weird in that regard. Is this like a cult where like sex is not like seen as, or rather is seen as like super normalized and just people engage in it? And that's why like Elena doesn't know who her father is because it could be multiple people. It's just it's because she specifically said that the cult views themselves as one big family. Like everyone is just connected. And like that makes things feel weird regarding sexuality and everything in the first place, but you know, it's a cult and it's weird shit. But yeah, it's you kind of wonder like there are a lot more depths here that again just weren't gone into because there's just not enough time in the episode and they had to focus on specific things. And it's just it makes me sad thinking about all the different ways that they were probably controlled and that we didn't even know about. It's it's upsetting. But I think that like portraying it this way and even having some ambiguity in certain things kind of makes it even worse in that regard for the sake of this series, because it makes you think about it. It makes you like hypothesize as to what it could be. And that's almost kind of scarier. And there's like the second VHS movie we reacted to on the channel had a cult situation in one of the anthology shorts of that film. And what if it's like that cult in regards to how the leader conducts himself with his followers? That thought absolutely crossed my mind in regards to the conversation about like Elena not knowing who her father was. And that's obviously very disturbing for a number of reasons. The possibility does exist though, and it's like that's upsetting. And if you watched my reaction to VHS 2, or if you've just seen the movie and know what the segment I'm talking about is, you know what I'm referring to. I'm trying not to say it here just because I don't want to, if I'm just being honest. But yeah, there's a lot of upsetting content with that segment, and it's a possibility that it could have been happening here. This just has so much more room for uncomfortable depth, and having those thoughts fill my head now because of that is just not very comfy. And yeah, I know part of that is also because I have seen so many videos of people talking about this kind of stuff, and I've heard quite a lot of horror stories about people who have escaped cults and everything. I know a lot of that is because of my own viewing habits with content, but also it's just my mind fucking with me as well. um this episode was a good episode in a very unsettling way. And again, although I personally haven't gone through a situation like this, I didn't grow up like as a Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon or any of that kind of stuff. I do still have like connections to a lot of the themes and ideas, especially of control, a religious group controlling its followers. And again, it's like just and I know some people would say like, oh, you haven't escaped that though if you're still a Christian and you're still following that. But there's a lot of differences between the church I attend now and those other churches. Um, for one, the church I attend now recognizes me for who I am as a trans non-binary person. Not only recognizes me for that, but accepts me for that. I'm part of a church that is very progressive and, actually follows the teachings of Jesus in the Bible. Whether you believe Jesus was a real person or not, the biblical teachings are still there, and this is definitely more in line with those. But even beyond that, it's just a lot more, or a lot less toxic, let's put it that way. And they're not trying to control me or anyone else there. In fact, they make a point of it being a by choice situation. And I appreciate that. I really do. They make it very much, they put it into our hands rather than trying to tell us what to do. It's basically a gathering of people who just believe and want to find hope and faith and all of that, but aren't all about controlling and manipulating others and everything. So that's good. Because I was actually on the verge of completely leaving Christianity prior to finding this church. This basically is the only reason I am still in that. I honestly, it is very specifically this church that is the only reason. I can honestly tell you now, if I moved and I was not able to go to this church anymore, like if I moved like enough to where I wouldn't like be in driving range of this church to be able to be picked up, I just wouldn't be involved anymore. This is the kind of last ditch effort for me on that. And it's the only thing still connecting me to it. And I mean, if you watch enough of my content, you know, like, I'm not like, I don't come across to some people as like super religious or Christian or anything. I mean, I did just react to a 5.5 hour movie that was like practically pornographic, like constant full frontal nudity and sex and everything being shown in pretty graphic detail. Nymphomaniac, if anyone is curious. But I would not suggest checking out that reaction or that movie unless you can handle a lot of very intense stuff. There's a trigger warning, there's a content warning in the description of that video. So I would definitely suggest like heeding that warning. But the point is that there's a lot of there's a lot of pain that comes out of the church, and there's a lot of issues that comes from all religion, any religion. And that's unfortunately not going to change. Not completely. Christianity will never be like fully represented by the likes of what my church is like. I understand that my church is an extreme exception to the rule. The rule being that most churches, most of Christianity is fucking terrible. And is actually kind of like really fucked up with not just their teachings and everything, but also how just bigoted and hateful they are. So it's like, most of Christianity is more akin to, let's say, Greg Locke than my church. And if you know who Greg Locke is, that's terrifying. Because Greg Locke is honestly evil. He is an evil person. He is terrible. He's not like Trump levels of evil or anything like that, but he is evil. He spreads so much vile hatred and evil messages and stuff. He's atrociously terrible. But yeah. So this episode obviously had a lot that connected with me, which is really funny because I said in the reaction that it's like, oh, this episode is named "Heaven Is a Place on Earth." It's named after a song from that I associate with an episode of Black Mirror that really connected with me. But this really connected in an entirely different way, which I also anticipated. Because the Black Mirror episode, San Junipero, connected with me extremely positively to the point that it made me bawl my eyes out the first time I saw it because I was so happy. And this is just like, I am very uncomfortable because I've been through shit like this, even if not exactly the same. And it's just upsetting to watch. For a number of reasons, but especially because of the fact that I can understand it to a degree. And so it's like, yeah. It's good, it's well made, but it just, I have a hard time with it at the same time. Both can be true. A movie, a show, an episode of a show, something can be really well written and directed and acted and everything, but also be really hard for someone to watch. Like, just because it's well made doesn't mean you have to like it even. doesn't mean that you'd ever be really wanting to watch it again. Though I would probably be willing to watch this again, to be fair. It's not that upsetting. Believe me, it could have been worse. It could have gone to a point where it really bothered me to the degree that I wouldn't be willing to watch it again. This is not that. It's not that bad. But it was really well done. And I actually really did appreciate Hannah's perspective on it too. Hannah was a great character who I really would love to see again. So, all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know any thoughts you have down in the description below. Um, I'd say no spoilers, but I think that because this is airing like weekly, there isn't any other episodes out yet. So, but if you heard like anything from like a trailer or um, like seeing any like information posted, because sometimes shows will post titles of episodes or information like brief synopsises ahead of time, just don't spoil anything if you have heard anything, because I want to continue being as spoiler free as possible. I am surprised that this episode wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be, based on the fact that it didn't have that cold open again. But it definitely did benefit from having the extra time, so I'm not bothered by that. Um, and yeah, still no further leads to Skinner, so at least not that we can tell of right now. Either way, thank you so much once again. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.